I'm Emily.
And I'm Ethan.
We're traveling across America in search of its most captivating communities.
All the while, we're working from the road and taking the adventures as they come.
This is
Remote!
The Columbia River has its headwaters in British Columbia. It flows south through Washington state and then turns westward as it flows to the coast along the border of Oregon and Washington. As it nears Portland, the Columbia River forms a canyon up to 4,000 feet deep, which stretches for over 80 miles. Because of its immense beauty, it's been named a National Scenic Area and is now managed by the U.S. Forest Service. Needless to say, we were pretty excited to visit this part of Oregon. I was really excited to visit the Columbia River Gorge because, you see these pictures online of this little town nestled beneath this huge mountain, and it's just so scenic. And then there's all these waterfalls back there and amazing hikes. And everybody from Portland goes up there, so of course you just hear tons about it. That famous town beneath the mountain is called Hood River, a town of about 8,000 people that was established in the mid-1800s. Hood River is most known for its skiing and craft beer. We were surprised to find just how many people were there in the summer for water sports. From sailboats to windsurfers, the river was packed with activity. The gorge, of course, is like a valley, a very narrow valley between mountains, right? So it's stretching like this. And there's a highway going down the middle. And the towns, again, at least the ones that we visited, were right there on the edge of the highway. So everywhere you go in the town, you can hear the traffic of the highway, which is a big letdown for me. I mean, why be out in the mountains and nature if you're just going to be along a highway hearing traffic anyway? You may as well just be in Portland at that point. It was really crowded. Some of the hikes we went on didn't have that many people, but the towns were just full of tourists, which makes sense because everybody from Portland, this is their go-to. It's like going on the I-70 corridor outside of Denver. We were excited to visit a local brewery or two. However, each of the places in town that we stopped at had over a 2-hour wait and was extremely crowded. A quick search online can tell you that Hood River faces this problem quite often, and crowding can be an extreme issue at any time of the year. We stayed in an Airbnb in the town of Carson, which is actually on the Washington state side of the gorge. It was a lovely mountain cottage that we shared with one other guest. The cottage was situated on 10 acres through which flowed a beautiful river and 2 waterfalls.
We hiked to Clover Falls on the Oregon side, which was a magnificent waterfall filling a chilly, deep blue pool. The water was freezing, but the views were incredible. And we also hiked to Pool of the Winds on the Washington side. This was a series of cascading falls up a heavily wooded slope. At the very top, there was a large waterfall pouring into the mouth of a cave. And it was called Pool of the Winds because you could actually feel the wind coming off of the waterfall through the mouth of the cave. It was really incredible.
It's time for Question Ethan. Ethan, why are there so many waterfalls in the Pacific Northwest?
God loves waterfalls.
God?
Is that your question?
And God's in the Pacific Northwest?
Where else would he be? I'm gonna say hello. Pretty bunny.
Since we couldn't get into any restaurants in Hood River, we crossed the river to a town on the Washington side called White Salmon. It was significantly less crowded and folks were nice and friendly.
So when we came to Oregon, little did we know we would stumble upon one of the biggest mysteries in the food service industry. In Oregon, they don't mess with Heinz. They have their own brand. Everyone uses Portland brand ketchup. But the first time we got here and went to a restaurant, that's not the bottle we saw. We saw a bottle of Portlandia ketchup. Like the show, you're right. We thought we were crazy too. Ever since then, every restaurant we've gone to has had Portland ketchup. Portland, without the Andia on the end of it. So we thought that the CIA drugged us and we were being set up for some kind of MK Ultra conspiracy theory.
I was like, oh my god, we have to find the lost city of Portlandia.
So,
No, Portlantis.
after consulting with one of the guides who specialized in the Lumerians in Mount Shasta, who assured us that Portlantis was a real thing, we made our way back up here and happened to stumble upon a little brewery in the mountains after a nice day in the town of Hood River. And lo and behold, what did we find?
Also, we're not in Hood River, we're in Washington State.
We're technically in White Salmon.
White Salmon, Washington.
Portlandia. You ruined my big suspenseful thing. Take two.
Do you feel like White Salmon is kind of a racist name?
No, because there's no black salmon. There's just other regular salmon. There's pink salmon.
There probably is. There's like all colors of the rainbow of salmon. There's rainbow trout.
That's a different fish.
That
Everyone
fish
knows they're the
doesn't
flamboyant fish.
discriminate.
It does what it wants. It's the most progressive fish there is. But you can't compare salmon, a good old conservative fish that's been eaten by bear for centuries, to rainbow trout. That's like comparing Liberace to Ron Swanson. You
I
just
think
can't make that
A
comparison.
bear would be happy to eat a rainbow trout. You should just start over.
I put so much work into that build-up. I'm just going to start from the reveal. Lo and behold, what did we discover? It's real. Portlandia. But look in the picture. The kid is eating fries with a bottle of ketchup that says Portland. Portlandia. From the people that brought you the Bernstein Bears, we present the biggest fraud in the food service industry, Portlandia ketchup, to cover up the fact that Portlantis was a place that the Lumerians came from in the Hood River.
We enjoyed our last day in Carson before heading back down the Columbia River toward Portland. You want some ketchup?
I see this is Portlandia ketchup. Does that mean it's actually from Portland? What were the tomatoes' names? I want to get to know them on a personal basis. Is it like a puree consistency? I really need to understand like the vibe and the culture in this bottle before I put it on my food. While we were in Portland, we stayed at the eclectic Crystal Hotel, which has a dark, magical theme to it. That night, having dinner in the restaurant inside the hotel, we ran into a girl named Raven who recommended we go check out a bar called the Raven Manor, which is a coincidence because we had just met Arvo and his Raven roommate. They were actually having a horror-themed burlesque show that night, which was extremely interesting. By the end of it, Portland was an interesting city, but it really wore us down, having just come from Dallas and really gotten sick of the big city life.
Although Portland had a lot of energy and creativity, you could also see remnants everywhere of the recent vandalism. It was also crazy crowded everywhere we went, which just reminded me why I'd rather move to a small town. And so our search continues for cute Oregon small towns. Where will we end up next? You'll have to wait till next week to find out.